How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Super Bowl prediction video. Gonna run through Super Bowl, preview it, talk about how I think the game's going to go, and eventually pick a winner. So, I actually took a bunch of notes for this game. So I think the way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to run through all my notes here, and then I'm going to kind of talk about how I think the game's going to go. All right. So, first of all, both teams. All right. So basically, the consensus for me after all my notes is Philly really should win the game on paper, at least. They are a far better team, at least statistically, and as far as rankings and such, than Kansas City. For example, both teams' offenses. The Chiefs have the 16th ranked overall offense. They're 14th in passing, 22nd rushing, and they're 15th in points. Philly has the 8th overall offense. They're 29th in passing yards, but they're also dead last in the league in passing attempts. However, they're second in rush yards and they're 7th in points. So 16th overall offense in Kansas City, 8th in Philly. So a pretty significant difference there as far as rankings. Defensively, the Chiefs had another really good year defensively. They were the 9th ranked overall defense. Uh, they were 18th in passing yards, 8th in rush yards, 4th in points allowed. So pretty solid year defensively. Not as great as last year. I believe they were I want to say second overall ranked defense last year, but still a really good defensive year. Top 10 in everything except passing yards. Philly defensively, they're number one in every category except rush yards. They are 10th in rush yards per game allowed. And actually, I have them at number one in points allowed, but I believe the Chargers actually beat them out by one more point or one less point allowed for the regular season. So I'm going to actually change my notes here. So I believe they did finish number two, but it was by 1 point. So, you know, either number one or two. Still, it's better than number four for the Chiefs. Basically, out of all the categories that is listed there, if you add them up offensively, Philly has better rankings in four of the five categories for both offense and both offense and defense. Philly has better rankings in 4 out of 5 categories. The only categories that the Chiefs have a better ranking in is passing yards per game and let me see here. And rush yards allowed per game. So besides those two categories, Philly has better rankings in every offensive and defensive, at least the categories I listed there. If you go to special teams, I listed kickoff returns, punt returns, punting, and kicking for both teams. It's actually very close in pretty much all those stats, but the Chiefs actually win 4 out of those 5 special teams categories. But again, they're like they marginally win. It's not, I don't think, going to be a significant game factor. Like statistically, the Chiefs special teams is better than the Eagles this season, but I don't think it's going to like solely win them the Super Bowl or anything like that. Um, Another thing I listed, turnovers. The Chiefs have 20 takeaways on the year. Philly, this is not including the postseason, by the way. Philly has 26. None of those stats I mentioned, offense, defense, special teams, include the postseason. At least I believe so, unless my my computer and the stats lied to me. But yeah, so the Chiefs had 20 takeaways. Philly had 26. The Chiefs had 14 giveaways. Philly had 15. The Chiefs had a +6 turnover margin on the year. The Eagles had +11. So if you add all those up, Philly wins 4 of the 7 categories there. Then just a side note I have here talking about the postseason. The Chiefs, again, they've only played 2 postseason games. They had the first round bye. Phillies played an extra game. They played in the wild card. They didn't get the bye. The Chiefs have 0 forced turnovers in their 2 postseason games, and they have 1 giveaway, the Mahomes fumble against the Bills. The Eagles, on the other hand, have 10 forced turnovers in the postseason and 0 giveaways. They have 6 fumbles and 4 picks. So that's an interesting note. That's something to watch out for in the Super Bowl potentially. Then here is something that I think is going to go a long way in who wins and loses this game. Vic Fangio. I believe Vic Fangio, of course, he's not going to be the sole factor and if Philly wins or loses, but I think he's going to be a serious player in this game. So a couple notes I have here. He's 0-8 versus Mahomes, but it comes with an asterisk. He's his quarterbacks are or sorry, his quarterbacks were Tua 2 times, Drew Lock 4 times, Joe Flacco, and Teddy Bridgewater. His offense in those games scored 11.9 points per game. You're not going to beat the Chiefs if you scored like 12 points a game. And yes, he was the head coach, but he's more of a defensive guy, obviously. Mahomes in those 8 games did not play a top 10 EPA defense. Philly is number 1. So Mahomes, and I'm going to go through in a second, but his stats against Vic Fangio, even though he's 8-0 against him, have dropped off some categories pretty significant. And that was against a defense not ranked top 10 in EPA. Philly is the number 1 defense. And again, the Chiefs' offenses in the past when they played Vic Fangio, I guess you can argue last year when they played the Dolphins with Vic Fangio as the DC over in Miami, their offense was maybe statistically worse than it was this past year, or this year, I mean. But outside of those 2 games, Mahomes' offense was far better than it is now. So again, I'll go through some stats here. So points per game. So versus Vic Fangio, Mahomes scores 26.9 points per game. Against everyone else, he scores 28.6. So around a 2-point margin there. Completion percentage, 64%, 67%, 3 completion percentage points less than everyone else when he plays Fangio. Yards per dropback, 6.9 versus Vic Fangio. Nice. 7.2 versus everyone else. Not a significant deficit there, but still maybe something to watch out for. Here's a decent one. EPA per play. Everyone else, 0.19. Against Vic Fangio, 0.07. Points per drive, 2.14, 2.66. And again, not a massive margin to overcome, but, in a game like this that I think some people are predicting a complete shootout, I think it's going to be kind of a mix of defense and offense for both teams. I think points are going to especially matter in a game like this that I think, regardless which either team wins, is going to go down to the wire. Super tight game. So points are going to matter in this one, I think. Red zone touchdown percentage. This is certainly an eyebrow-raising set. Against Vic Fangio, 37%. Everyone else, 63%. Here's another one. Goal-to-go touchdown percentage. 38% against Fangio, 79% against everyone else. Third down percentage, or conversion percentage, 38% against Fangio, 49% against everyone else. So basically, against Fangio, all those categories I listed, his numbers are lower than in every single category than against everyone else. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I obviously hate the Chiefs and I don't like the Eagles either by any means, but I'm pulling for the Eagles because I hate the Chiefs so much. So this kind of gives me a bit of optimism. If you're an Eagles fan, hopefully this gives you some optimism because, again, Mahomes, his offense in the past when he's played Fangio, maybe outside of the 2 games last year, has always been far better than it is now. The Chiefs were a top offense every time they played Fangio, except prior to the last year, maybe. This year, they're 16th in offense. Their offense has been mid all year. They've gotten carried by their defense for the most part this year. They've become a defensive team this year rather than an offensive team. Last year, too. And Vic Fangio, he's given Mahomes troubles in the past with a lesser defense than he is now. And that was with a better Chiefs offense than it is now. So, again, that's kind of a point that I'm feeling pretty good about, rooting for the Eagles. So then I just have some general notes here. So the Chiefs blitz 35.6% of the time. They get a 43.8% pressure rate off of it. They're a heavy man coverage team. So what's the problem when you go man coverage and you blitz and leave receivers one-on-one? Well, for the Eagles, Hurts is 82 of 118 for just over 1,200 yards, 1,224 yards, 11 touchdowns, one pick, and a 138 or 130.8 passer rating. Philly in sorry, that's a different point. Okay, so off that talking point right there, the Chiefs are a heavy man coverage team. They like to blitz a lot, and they like to play a good amount of zone too, but they're a heavy man coverage and blitzing team. Philly, offensively, one of their strengths is beating man coverage in the blitz because how do they do it? They got A.J. Brown, they got Smith, and Goddard. They're all good contested catch guys. A.J. Brown, they like to run him on man beater or blitz beater routes, like crossers, slants, things like that. Devontae Smith runs a decent amount of crossers, so does Goddard. So they run man blitz beater routes, and they're all good at contested catches, winning one-on-one matchups. I have an A.J. Brown stat. I can see in coverage. Yep, okay, here it is. A.J. Brown, for example, for a single coverage since 2022, since he was on the Eagles, his first year on Philly, he's first in every receiving category. First in receptions, 156 receptions, 2,764 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 70 explosive receptions. So if you're going to leave A.J. Brown one-on-one in single coverage, at least statistically, you're going to have a problem. And we saw in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, the Chiefs ran where is it here? Sorry, let me look for it here. Okay, so the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57, when these teams played 2 years ago, they ran man about 60% of the time and they blitzed about 27% of the time. Now that seems high to me. That's what the stats told me. I couldn't verify it, so I'm just going to go with it, even though it seems a bit high. If that's true, Philly's offense absolutely torched KC in that Super Bowl. They scored 35. Hurts, I think, played the best game of his career, even though he lost. Beat Tom Brady's record for the most points put up for a losing quarterback and team in the Super Bowl. 35. Brady had it at 33. Super Bowl 52. So yeah, basically, my point is the Chiefs like to run a lot of man coverage, blitzes. And 2 years ago when that happened, Philly torched it, and A.J. Brown is number one in man coverage. So if they stick to their schemes, there's a good chance Philly has a good amount of success, is kind of what I'm trying to say here. On the opposite side, Philly in man coverage has allowed 70 catches on 135 attempts, 829 yards, 5 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a 58.5 passer rating they've allowed. They also have 19 passes defense. So when Philly runs man coverage, on the other hand, well, the Chiefs run a good man coverage, but Philly, when they run it, they have the second, I believe it was the second, I think it was the highest, or the lowest passer rating allowed, which for a defense, that's good. It was like a point or something like that ahead of the Vikings, I believe, when they ran man coverage this season. So that's good for Philly. Here's another talking point. Again, Super Bowl 57 2 years ago when these teams faced off. The Chiefs, I mentioned earlier, their offense was ranked 3rd overall. Their defense was worse, though, at least statistically. It was ranked 14th. But again, their offense was 3rd, and now it is 16th. So pretty significant drop-off ranking-wise there. Philly had the 7th ranked offense and the 2nd ranked defense that year. Now Philly has the 8th ranked offense and the top ranked defense. So Philly is pretty much the same, almost exactly the same rankings-wise. The Chiefs, even though they have a better defensive ranking, their offense has maybe not plummeted, but it has taken a significant dip ranking-wise at least. And the problem for the Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 years ago is not their offense. I was just talking about it, torch it. Their defense could not stop the Chiefs to save their lives. I believe they got 2 stops on the Chiefs the entire game, maybe 3. In the second half, I believe the Chiefs scored a touchdown every drive except one at the end when they got that controversial. What a surprise! She's getting a call to go their way. That's controversial in crunch time. They holding call on Bradbury on Juju, and they settled for the field goal to play the clock game. Otherwise, they probably would add a touchdown. I actually believe, I think it was Pacheco, basically had a walk-in touchdown, just slid early to, play the clock game. So yeah, if Philly's defense, again, keep talking about Vic Fangio, I think Philly's offense is going to have success this game. I think both teams' offense are going to have some success, but if Philly's defense can, play a hell of a game, really limit the Chiefs, I strongly feel that they're going to win the Super Bowl because I think their offense is at least going to score in the 20s. Um, Here's another thing to look at for. Mahomes in the Super Bowl, uh, he has not played great, at least statistically. He's obviously this is going to be his fifth. He's played in four prior to this. He only has an 85.2 passer rating. He has 1,700 or 1,071 yards, seven touchdowns, five picks. And here's another thing: he has five fumbles. Now, none of them have been turnovers. The fumbles, the Chiefs recovered them all, but he has 10 he has five picks and he has five fumbles. So the potential for 10 turnovers there. And people can say it was skewed because of the Tampa game. Even without that Tampa game, he didn't play very great against the Niners. And at least statistically, I think he only had a 78 passer rating in the Super Bowl against the Niners, like 78.8, something like that. Then there's the Tampa game. Uh, then obviously the Bengals beat them the year after that. Against the Eagles 2 years ago, I think Mahomes played really well. I think that was definitely his best statistical Super Bowl, but it was just wide open receiver, wide open receiver, it felt like. And I think he only had 199 passing yards. Last year against the Niners, statistically, I think he played a good game, but they were stuck on 6 points for a long time. Then they got the muffed punt and they got the touchdown after that. But their offense was struggling most of that game. So even if you take away the Tampa game, I don't think Mahomes has been too great in Super Bowls. That's going to be another thing to watch out for. The KC run defense in the postseason, they allowed 149 yards to Houston, 147 yards to Buffalo. So they've been a pretty good run defense all year, but they've allowed 150 yards in rush yards to their two postseason opponents. Obviously, what is the Eagles' strength? Running the ball with Saquon, and even Hurts in there. So KC run defense, maybe not struggling a bit, but allowing a good amount of production. Is that going to continue? I'm sure the Eagles are going to emphasize Saquon tonight. So, and then again, bouncing at that, Saquon in his three postseason games, he has 442 with the Eagles. I mean, this year he has 442 yards, five touchdowns, and he has 6.7 yards per carry. If he gets 6.7 yards per carry tonight, and assuming he gets a decent amount of carries, the Chiefs I think are in serious trouble. Devontae Smith, here's an interesting stat. In his three games against the Chiefs, he played them in the 2021 regular season, obviously the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and then they played in the regular season last year. He has 18 receptions for 301 yards. That is 107 yards per game against the Chiefs, which is the most all time versus the Chiefs in a minimum of three games. So he's had a lot of success against the Chiefs. Is that going to continue? Let's see here. Another stat I have. Kansas City on fourth down the regular season, they were 70.6%. They've only gone for it on fourth down three times in the postseason, 66.7%. Which team's going to be aggressive? That's going to be interesting. I'm sure the Eagles are going to go for it on fourth down if it's the tush push. They're 3-3 on fourth down this postseason, the Eagles. But I believe they were all just the tush push. The regular season, they were 70.4%. So going to be interesting there, which team is more aggressive going for it on fourth down. In the postseason, the Kansas City defense, they have allowed a 44% third down conversion rate and 57% on fourth down. Now the Texans, again, they've only played two postseason games. The Texans were 0 for 1, but the Bills got a bunch of them against the Chiefs. Philly, on the other hand, 55.6 on third down, 60% on fourth down. So statistically, Philly this postseason is actually giving up more third down conversions and more fourth down conversions. So that's going to be something to watch out for too. Sorry, let me looking at my notes here. I don't even know what the hell I'm writing. Okay. Oh, I see. So the Kansas City offense is 45% third down conversions, and Philly's 36.1%. So Kansas City, I believe they were second in the league in the regular season, converting third downs. They're converting third downs at a better percentage than Philly this postseason, too. And another thing to watch out for, both teams, it seems like, are allowing a good amount of production to tight ends. So I think Goddard and Kelce have big game potential in this one, especially Kelce. I'm sure they're going to try to force feed on the ball so they can pan to Taylor Swift 400 times, which no one cares about. God help us all. Force it down our throats. Pause. Especially now, there's reports coming out yesterday. They're saying Kelce might retire. Oh God! So I'm sure they'll try to force feed him the ball. All right. So keys to win for both teams. Kansas City. This is much easier said than done, but slow down Saquon. I don't think they're going to shut him down, but try to slow him down. But the key is without blitzing or stacking the box. And because if you do so, you're going to leave those Philly receivers one-on-one, most likely, which, as I was talking about earlier, is going to cause some problems. And limit the explosive plays. Force Hurts to throw quick without single covering receivers. Try to take away his first read. Hurts after his first read. I don't have statistics on this, but it feels like if his first read isn't there, my guess is his statistics plummet. Save your creative blitzes for crucial moments. I'm sure Spags, very creative DC. We saw it against the Bills last week. He drew up a very creative, clever blitz, or 2 weeks ago on that fourth down play, which again, Kincaid should have caught that. But still, as a creative blitz, Spags, as a Patriots fan, I know him all too well. Obviously, the Giants OC in 07 held the greatest offense ever to 14 points. In that Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm sure Spags has some creative blitzes, but try to save him late. And again, I think the Chiefs are going to want to stay away from, blitzing a heavy rate. So save your blitzes, your creative ones, for crucial moments in the game. Get pressure with your standard pass rush. And again, this goes off the little, maybe not little, but try to limit your man and blitz coverages there. Mahomes, get the ball out quick. Kansas City's offense has not, as I mentioned, it's been mid all year. Their offensive line, I don't think, has been very great, even though it's been a lot better since they moved Tooney over. But Mahomes, again, that Philly pass rush is something else. Mahomes, you're going to want to get the ball quick. Just get the ball out of your hands, negate the pass rush, get your first read open, things like that. Third and manageable. Again, one reason why the Chiefs, their third down conversion percentage has been as high as it was all year is because it's always been third and manageable. Third and short, most of the time it's third and short, it feels like. Third and medium sometimes. It's rarely third and long, it feels like, with this team. And how do they get it to that point? They usually get a good amount of yards on first down and second down with runs, short passes, things like that. So then the playbook is wide open for third down. If you get to a third and long against this Philly team with the pass rush, you might be in for some trouble. So again, just do what you've done all year. Make it third and manageable. Avoid a slow start. Feels like the Chiefs, and I was talking about Mahomes in the Super Bowl earlier, at least offensively, they've gotten off to slow starts in the Super Bowl, it feels like. So they got to try to avoid a slow start, get off to a fast start. They do not want to play from behind against this Philly team, even though they were behind 10 at halftime against this team 2 years ago and came back to win. This is, 2 years later, different teams. So yeah, don't want to fall behind, obviously. You're going to want to have a consistent and efficient offensive game. I mentioned get the your first read open of your Mahomes there. Again, I don't think if Philly's defense has a good amount of success this game, I really feel strongly they're going to win the game. So the Chiefs, you do not want to, if they are stuck on 6 points, halfway through the third quarter, like they were last year, I think Philly wins this game. Because I think Kansas City's defense is going to play good, but I think Philly's offense is going to be able to certainly outpace the Chiefs if they're stuck on 6 points 3/4 the way through the game. So the Chiefs, you don't want to get off to a sluggish start, as I mentioned. Get off to a fast start. You want to have a consistent, efficient game. Do what they've done all year. slow, methodical drives up the field, and at least get field goals. That's what you're going to want to do if you're the Chiefs. Points target for the Chiefs, I feel like 27. If they can get to 27, I think they win the Super Bowl. I could see them winning with 26 too. But I think both teams are scoring in the 20s this game. I feel fairly comfortable about that. I think both teams are scoring in the 20s this game. But for Kansas City, my target goal for them to win the Super Bowl is 27 points. On the flip end, my keys to win for Philly, make the KC offense one-dimensional. And how do you do that? Force passes. So you're going to want to limit the run game, obviously shut it down if you can, but force Kansas City to pass. And again, specifically, you're going to want them to pass on 3rd and long. And my next bullet point, force 3rd and longs, no 3rd and shorts. Get your pass rush active, make Mahomes take away his first read, things like that. Avoid blitzing, leaving Kansas City receivers one-on-one, specifically Kelce, maybe even Hopkins, and Worthy too. Again, when Mahomes is really good against the blitz, and Philly, when they blitzed 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, they got absolutely torched. So kind of like the Chiefs, I think you're going to want to avoid blitzing here. Force Mahomes to hold on to the ball. Just talked about that a bit. Take away his first read. Here's an interesting point I wrote down. Philly's defense is going to want to prepare for the pitch option, the short play action, the rollout plays, and short yardage situations the Chiefs love to do. They really are going to want to prepare for those. The Chiefs love to do those in crucial situations, on short yardage situations. Same thing with the Chiefs. Get pressure with your standard rush. Again, that means like not blitzing, and just don't sacrifice coverage to get pressure. Yep, here's another point. Let Saquon make it easy for you. Make it 3rd and short. Obviously get into tush push range. Let Saquon make it easy for you. Establish Saquon. That means you can establish the play action game, and that means you can take deep shots on the aggressive Chiefs secondary. That again is a heavy blitz man coverage team with AJ Brown and Smith, and we saw it a couple years ago, the Super Bowl. Hurts, it was like from the 50-yard line, took a play action deep shot to AJ Brown, caught it for a touchdown. Things like that. If they can get the run game going, you establish the play action game, especially an aggressive secondary and defense like the Chiefs. You might be able to get them caught for a deep play. Get your first read open for Hurts. Again, Hurts, it seems like if his first read is taken away and he has to improvise, a lot of the time that's when he struggles. Might hold the ball too long. Get quick throws, which again can build up to your deep shots, specifically off play action. Again, Hurts, quick throws, slants, crossers, things like that. That's my next point. Run man blitz beaters. Again, crossers. That's a common blitz and man beater that the Eagles like to run. And again, I said the Chiefs don't get off to a slow start. Philly, kind of the same thing. Get off to a fast start. Make Kansas City play from behind. Again, Kansas City was behind by 10 at halftime 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, and they came back. This offense is far worse for the Chiefs than it was 2 years ago. And this Eagles defense, A, I think is better than it was 2 years ago. And B, I think is better coached because Vic Fangio is going to make, I think, far better adjustments than Jonathan Gannon was able to in that Super Bowl. And again, my target point on don't let up. Obviously, if you get off to a fast start, just full throttle. Do not let up. Target points for Philly, I also have 27. I think they win with 27 plus. So basically, in my opinion, whichever team can get to 27, I think wins the Super Bowl. So my target point for both teams is 27. My final thoughts. I think Philly has far more ways to win this game than KC. They can win with either the run or the pass game. You can see Saquon can go off, Hurts can go off. Hurts has not gone off this postseason kind of all year. I mentioned they were dead last in the league in pass attempts, but Hurts I think is capable of, even though I'm not a big Jalen Hurts guy, I think he's capable of stringing together at least one game. We saw in the Super Bowl, I mentioned, I think he had his best game of his career passing towards the Chiefs, and they didn't have Saquon then, obviously. They had Miles Sanders, so... And again, Miles Sanders I actually think is pretty underrated, but Saquon is obviously a major upgrade over him. Kansas City has its plate full defensively this game. Are they going to try to stack the box? I'll take away Saquon of the run game, make Hurts pass. If they do that, are they going to run man coverage? Are they going to do their normal blitz scheme, which again is going to leave kind of a big risk, leave A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert one-on-one? I'm going to be very interested to see Steve Spagnuolo's game plan in this one. Philly's defense, I think, has the potential to really give Kansas City problems, especially with Fangio. I mentioned, I think he's in a better position to, coach his defense better than Jonathan Gannon was 2 years ago. But at the same time, I can also see Kansas City having a very efficient game offensively. If Kansas City is an efficient game offensively, where let's say Philly's defense only forces like a punt or two, I really think the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl, unfortunately. Key for both quarterbacks, I believe, is to get the ball quick, get the ball to your first read. I'm also interested in Fangio's game plan. My guess is he's going to play more zone than usual. I think this game's a healthy mix of offense and defense. Part of my gut, I think, is saying the Kansas City defense gets a crucial key stop. Think both teams score in the 20s. On paper, Philly should win the game, and I think this is a tight game all the way. My gut's telling me I may be dumb for betting against Kansas City, especially after the single luckiest season in sports history, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, my official pick for the Super Bowl. I am picking the Eagles to win 27-23. I'm not too confident in that at all. Pretty much, not everyone, but probably like 70-ish% of the picks I see online and on the news, everything like that, are going with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored, I believe, by 1.5 points. The over-under, I believe, is 49. So, 27-20. So I have it over by 1 point. I think that's a really good over-under. I think it's going to be right around there. If I had to, I feel like if you don't know, it can go either way with an over-under. Just going with the over is usually the safer option a bit. But I don't know. I'm probably just going to bet everything I have in the Super Bowl last game of the year. Who cares at this point? In my betting account, I mean. But yeah, over under, that's, I think, a really good one. I think it definitely is ending around 49 total points. Here's another point I have. I'm going to be very interested to see how this game's officiated. With all the Kansas City, the ref talk, it heating up at an all-time high, the referees having themselves to come out with a statement saying it's not rigged. And they said, this kind of pissed me off. They said it was insulting to believe that, to them, that it's rigged. Okay, well, it's insulting to us because we have eyesight and we're watching the games when the Chiefs get every single controversial call and 50-50 call to go their way. So I'm going to be very interested to see that. I mean, the NFL isn't stupid. They obviously hear the noise. Goodell was talking about it himself. So I'm going to be very interested to see how this game is officiated. So those are all my notes I have. So yeah, this game, as I mentioned, I think this is a super tight game. It's back and forth. I do not feel super confident with my Eagles pick, but I definitely think the Eagles are the better team. Again, I went off all those statistics and rankings, and Philly is better in pretty much all of them except special teams. Philly, to me, has been far more impressive this year. I think they have the better offense and the better defense. And special teams, even though Kansas City, I think, is this better special teams, at least ranking and statistic-wise, it's very marginal, and I don't think makes up for the difference in defense and offense. Coaching, I do think the Chiefs are better coached. Andy Reid, I'm not a Nick Sirianni guy. I think Andy Reid will run laps around Nick Sirianni, but I honestly think this Eagles team is a better team than it was 2 years ago when it made the Super Bowl, and now they have the experience. I don't think they lost because they weren't experienced or anything like that 2 years ago, but they also have the chip on their shoulder that they lost to this team 2 years ago. And I think it's a better team. I think they're better coached, especially defensively. And again, I actually really like Jonathan Gannon. He gets a lot of shit from Philly fans, mainly because of the Super Bowl. performance, and it made struggled to make adjustments in the second half specifically. But I actually think Jonathan Gannon's a really good defensive coach. I kind of like some of his schemes he runs, but I think Vic Fangio is far better. I think he's better at adjusting. And again, Philly, what I'm confident about rooting for the Eagles in this game, even though I hate them, is 2 years ago, I think the Chiefs were a far better team than they were now. 2 years ago, their defense was a little bit worse, but their offense was far better. Their offense is mid at best, I think, this year. They are probably coming off their best offensive game of the year against the Bills. They scored 32. The first time all year they've scored 30 plus. But this Philly defense is another breed. They scored 32, and for example, one concern I had was coaching against for the Bills was coaching. The Chiefs ran their play action play with the running back coming out of the flat multiple times, no adjustments. Elam, they just kept pitching it to whoever was lined up with Elam. Bills struggled to adjust. They did the same thing multiple times. The Bills defense struggled to adjust. Philly, I think, will adjust to things like that, and I think Philly's defense is better than the Bills in general too. Offensively, if there's a team and a coach that's going to stop the tush push, it'll probably be Spagnuolo. But he couldn't stop it 2 years ago when the Eagles played them in the Super Bowl. So there's that. But yeah, I just think Philly is I don't know. I think they're in a better spot than they were 2 years ago. I think they're a better team. They marginally lost, again, because of their defense. And I think their defense is better now. The Chiefs' offense is significantly worse. And their defense is better, but I don't think it's going to make up for their offense taking the dip in production it has the past couple years. I don't know. Just on paper, I feel really good with the Eagles, but I know I'm going against the Chiefs here. Obviously, this is their third Super Bowl in a row, their third appearance at least, so they win, they'll three-peat. God, if that happens, it'll be an absolute nightmare of a scenario. God help us all. We'll have to endure the ridiculous GOAT debates at Mid-Holmes and Brady, and then comparing the Chiefs to our dynasty. Oh, God help us all. But, oh boy, I'm very interested to see how this game goes. My gut feeling, I was going to pick the Chiefs when I saw this game initially. I kind of talked about it when Dylan and I were, I believe, picking the NFC Championship and AFC Championship games during that podcast episode. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to pick if they beat the Bills, I think I'm going to pick them regardless against either Philly or Washington. If Washington had beaten the Eagles, now I'm more thankful that Philly beat them. I think Kansas City certainly would have won the Super Bowl. They probably would have been like 6.5-point favorites, something like that, against Washington. Excuse me here. So I'm thankful that Philly ended up beating Washington to get to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I picked against the Chiefs in every Super Bowl they've been in with the Mahomes era, and it's not just because I hate them. I don't think I started officially doing picks till 2020, but 2019, I believe I picked the Niners that year. 2020, I know I picked the Bucs for sure. 2 years ago, I don't know. Maybe I did pick them to beat the Eagles. I think I picked the Eagles. I'm not 100% sure. I know last year I picked the Niners, though, to beat them. So am I really picking against Kansas City? Again, Gronk picked against them every Super Bowl, and he said he's picking them this year. So I think he honestly is just trying to reverse jinx. He was kind of joking. He's like, oh, if you're a Philly fan, you like my pick. But yeah, excuse me again here. Dying over here. But yeah, I just think Philly's in a far better spot than they were 2 years ago. I think they're a better team, and they still narrowly beat the Chiefs. Maybe they would have Hurts' legacy drive if they didn't get that controversial holding call, and I think this Chiefs team is worse. It kind of reminds me a bit of the 2020 Super Bowl with the Bucs and Chiefs. I don't think the Eagles are going to blow the Chiefs out like the Bucs did, 31-9. But pretty much everyone was picking the Chiefs that game, and the Bucs just steamrolled them. And I don't think it's going to be like that, but not a lot of people picking the Eagles. But I shouldn't say not a lot of people, but I think a majority of the people are picking the Chiefs, but I'm going with the Eagles. I mentioned 27-23. I guess I'm kind of, again, I think a healthy mix of offense and defense from both teams. I think the Chiefs defense will probably get a key stop, as I mentioned earlier. I think Philly's defense will probably get a key stop. I think I am going to predict that the Eagles get off to a better start. I think Kansas City might get off to a slow start offensively. It's kind of a tendency they've had in their past Super Bowl appearances, as I mentioned, with Mahomes and Andy Reid. I think Philly's defense is going to come out hot. They're going to kind of have control of the game. The Chiefs are going to kind of find their footing as the game progresses. But I just think Philly's defense is in a much better state now than it was 2 years ago. And their offense, you can argue, is even better with Saquon. Hurts hasn't done too much passing this year, at least from a passing perspective this year, but he's more than capable of doing so, at least for one game against an opponent that he torched 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. Excuse me, really am dying over here. So yeah, I think Saquon, I don't think he's going to go absolutely berserk, like 200 plus rush yards. I do think the Chiefs, their emphasis is going to be to force Hurts to pass. I don't think they're going to stack the box. I think their emphasis is going to be to slow Saquon down. I think Saquon will have, a decent mix of, getting stuffed at the line, like a 1 or 2 yard gain, like minimal gains. He'll have a couple of decent runs where, he gets like 6 or 7 yards. And I think he'll probably have like 1 to 3 explosive plays where he rips off a big run. I certainly think they're going to give Saquon a heavy workload this game, like they have all year. But I think the Chiefs, their emphasis is going to be to force Hurts to pass, slow down the run game. Now, again, the problem is if they force Hurts to pass, they're going to have to do so, at least in theory, by not sacrificing coverage. They're going to have to not leave Brown and Smith in coverage, in one-on-one coverage, and Goddard too. And if they do so, they are going to have to really hope the blitz gets home quickly. So, again, I'm very interested to see how Spags calls the defense tonight, how, the Chiefs defense plays their defensive game plan. The Chiefs offense game plan, I think it's going to be similar to how it's been all year, just the slow, methodical drives up the field. Philly, as I mentioned, I think defensively is going to play some more zone. And then Philly offensively, I think they're going to try to, my guess is they're going to try to, I think they're going to rely on Saquon, lean on him like they have all year. I think they're going to mix in some more passes, that more than they've been doing at least. And my guess is it's going to be a lot of play action, maybe dump offs like bootlegs or, just short play action passes, things like that. Try to bait the Kansas City defense into, the play action game with the run. Because I'm sure, Philly, even though I think the Kansas City coaching is better, Philly, I think, is they're smart coaches. They're thinking, all right, well, Super Bowl, biggest game of the year. Saquon's been our MVP all year. Everyone's thinking we're just going to hand it off to him, let him go wild. So why not fake hand it off to him and get the play action game going? And again, if you do that, then the Chiefs, okay, well, now we're going to have to play for the pass. That's maybe when you can get Saquon going. So again, the Eagles, I think, have many more ways to win this game than the Chiefs. The Chiefs, if they win this game, I really think their defense is going to have to step up, which, again, it's done that all year, the past 2 years, really. I think their defense is going to have to significantly step up. A key is, and this might tell you, obviously, but holding to field goals instead of touchdowns. And Elliott's kind of been shaky all year. I think he's missed one extra point in the postseason, but the regular season, he was not great, at least from a field goal. I think he only missed 2 extra points. I think he was like 70-something% with field goals. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, Elliott was 28 of 36 off of field goals, 77.8%. So not too great. So, the Chiefs are the luckiest team in sports history, having the single luckiest season ever. So I'm sure they'll get bailed out. I'm going to knock on wood, it doesn't happen. That Elliott misses a kick, something like that. Butker's been, I don't think he's missed in the postseason. He had some concerns come back from the injury, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Hopefully, I'm putting the reverse jinx on him. He misses a crucial kick, something like that. But yeah, anything else I'm missing here? I think this is a back and forth game. Again, I think it plays out. Philly gets Saquon involved, but they pass more than people were thinking. Short play action passes, things like that. I think they get off to a hot start. I think Kansas City finds its footing as the game progresses. It's back and forth, goes down to the wire. Good mix of defense from both teams, solid defensive games from both teams, solid offensive game from both teams. But at the end, I think the Eagles are going to prevail. Maybe a little bold. God, I really hope I just really hope they win. I fucking hate the Chiefs so much, but I'm going with the Eagles 27-23. I think this is going to be a hell of a Super Bowl, though. This has been, again, I mentioned in some of my videos, the most single painful year I've ever experienced as a sports fan. Because A, the Patriots are awful. We were god awful this year. B, I got so screwed sports betting. C, fantasy. God, just an absolute. I mean, I made it to the championship in two of my leagues, got blown out. Just it's been such a hard, difficult year. This is a bad fan and sports fan for me this year. At least I had the Celtics still. We just swatted the Knicks last night. But yeah. So anyway, my two least favorite teams in the Super Bowl, but going for the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles, Eagles. Here we go, Eagles. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you're betting on the Super Bowl, I know I certainly will be. Good luck with your bets. If you're an Eagles fan, fly, Eagles, fly. If you're a Chiefs fan, no offense. I hope your team loses. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one. Enjoy the Super Bowl.